Okay, everyone, this meeting, this is a masterclass gathering of incredible human beings. So welcome to the Inspired Results Learning Lab Masterclass. I'm Diane Lloyd. I often forget to introduce myself. I am the founder of Inspired Results Group. I'm incredibly passionate about all things leadership and all things coaching. And I'm so grateful that you're choosing to spend an hour with us and exploring topics that seem timely and relevant in our world of leadership and life. I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint slides here to keep me focused. So this is our catchy title. If you want engagement, lead like a facilitator. And that's the question we're going to explore today. I'm just going to get settled and grounded and literally put my feet on the ground because I need that grounding. And I want to acknowledge lots of things. I've actually struggled with acknowledgements this week in my desire to make them meaningful and not dismiss or ignore what we are reckoning with right now as Canadians. And it's time and it's hard, and we can do it together. Now, where I typically arrive from, and Nicole and Beth later on, if you'd like to acknowledge where you're arriving from, the Coast Salish territory of the Algonquin and Masonic nations, the Victoria region, now known as, typically where I arrive from. But today I'm so grateful to be arriving from the Osoyoos Indian Band territory, where I am in a new home in this region, and so grateful. I have so much to learn about the region and the Indigenous history here. And many of you know how attached I am to the reading and wisdom of Richard Wagamese. So I'm going to read from Embers. Richard Wagamese, a Ojibwe Cree man, no longer in the physical world, and thankfully he was a prolific writer. And reading from Embers this year has really supported me. So I wanted to share this reading with you. So these are the words of Richard Wagamese. Life is sometimes hard. There are challenges, there are difficulties, there is pain. As a younger man, I sought to avoid pain and difficulty and only caused myself more of the same. These days, I choose to face life head on, and I have become a comet. I arc across the sky of my life, and the hard times are the friction that shaves off the worn and tired bits. The more I travel head on, the more I am shaped, and the things that no longer work or unnecessary drop away. It's a good way to travel. I believe eventually I will wear away all resistance until all that's left of me is light. Whew. That's a goosebump. Okay, let's see what kind of light we can shine on leading like a facilitator and being ourselves in that journey. So just to set the stage a little bit, if this is your first masterclass, this is how we roll here. You've shown up, you've dedicated an hour, whatever you can do to limit distractions and be present to yourself, your thoughts and feelings, and to each other. I really invite you to embrace that. We love it if you can keep your camera on, and if you have Wi-Fi or you need to turn your camera off, totally fine. You may want to stay muted so we don't hear anything you don't want us to hear. This session is recorded. We do share it. Many people register and can't attend live, so we share the recording with them. So here's my favorite tip these days to manage some Zoom fatigue. If you want to hide self-view, this is personally my new favorite thing to do, because it's hard to see ourselves all the time in these virtual settings. So if you click on your window and click on the 3 white dots up in the right-hand corner, hide self-view is an option down at the bottom of that menu. So then you see everyone else. You don't have to look in the mirror through the entire session. So you can take that tip into your other meetings beyond today. We'd love to know what you're learning, what you're taking away, so feel free to use the chat. We will monitor the chat, and this is actually an opportunity for me to acknowledge Nicole Sampson, who's here. And Nicole, I didn't prepare you for this, but I would love for you to just come on in, and could you just share with us what you're excited about with this masterclass today?
Yeah, thanks, Diane. First of all, I'm so excited. My computer allowed me to stay into this masterclass today and I didn't get kicked out. So I'm really excited. I feel like a lot of people have shared in the chat. They're just loving these masterclasses, and I haven't been able to attend as many live. So I'm so excited to be here and to learn from someone like Beth, who Diane also speaks so highly of. And I get the opportunity to sit in with a lot of Diane's facilitation. So it's so good just to kind of get this nice summary of some facilitation skills in this masterclass today.
Thanks, Nicole. Nicole is the glue that keeps Inspired Results Group together, and her care, I feel like Nicole's role within Inspired Results Group is just to support everybody to feel seen and connected to the work that we're doing. So appreciate you, Nicole, and so glad you're here. So what is this learning lab? So this was an idea I had last fall. I'm learning to just listen to my intuition and create things that my intuition tells me are meaningful. And so I recognized that I wanted to create a space for us to come together as curious leaders, curious people, and have a place to experiment and grow and engage with one another. And it's been an opportunity for me to experiment with topics, with conversations, and just letting this masterclass concept evolve. And the Learning Lab, the other thing I just wanted to highlight for this month, and I'm really open to ideas about how to bring our book of the month a little more to the forefront. So this month we're going to read Emotional Agility. I would love to have other people joining me in that book read. So let me know if you're interested, and maybe we could create a space to talk about the book. So that's an idea I'm planting in your minds. So I am just going to tell you how much I appreciate Beth Kugler-Blom as a friend, I think first and foremost. And I have learned so much from Beth about facilitation, about learning design, in those moments when I found myself facilitating, thinking, what am I doing? I have no idea how to facilitate. She is my go-to support and resource and encourager. I would say, Beth, you've really encouraged me in ways you're probably unaware of. So why don't you come on in and tell us, what are you excited about with this conversation today?
Oh, I'm so, hang on, unmute myself. Okay, yes, gave me a little message there. I'm so excited to be here. And these are some of my favorite things to talk about as well. And I love, you know, that pairing that you were talking about leadership and facilitation. I don't often think about what I do as leadership, to be honest, but so this will expand my thinking today too. I mean, I know it is, but I just don't tend to use that word. So yeah, we're going to learn from each other, and that's our whole purpose today, isn't it?
It is. Well, and this is so, what I love about this is exploring this intersection of almost identity. It's like identity as a facilitator, identity as a leader, and actually acknowledging how they coexist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I was telling Beth that the reason this masterclass topic really bubbled to the surface for me was because of this question I kept experiencing in workshops and working with leaders, especially around the context of virtual teams, and this, like, how do you keep people engaged, and how do we keep them connected, and how do we collaborate? And those are common, I think, struggles and challenges that leaders are having. And so I started to really think about that. Well, what is it that makes that possible? What can we do as leaders to create the space for that? And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to just point your eyes to these themes for just a moment, because this slide's going to go away. But I want you to listen to Beth and I talk about this topic through these 3 themes, and we'll bring these themes back up at the end of our conversation. But this is what we're going to be navigating in a very organic and loose way. So maybe, Beth, do you want to just tell us about the fishbowl technique and its value, and then we will model it?
Sure, yeah. You can call it fishbowl, or I work a lot with liberating structures and we call it user experience fishbowl in that set of activities. But basically it just means that Diane and I, we're going to be the fish in the bowl, and the rest of you are going to look in on our conversation for, I think, about 15, maybe 12, 15 minutes. We'll see how we go. And we're going to just riff back and forth on some of those themes and using facilitation skills in everyday situations. And then we'll open up the room for your questions and comments. And I think we could probably take those in the chat, or maybe a few verbal questions and comments too. Hey, Diane?
You bet. Yeah.
So, and maybe we'll ask for kind of silence in the chat while we fishbowl, just so that we don't have that distraction. We can just kind of focus on each other in our discussion, but then knowing that we'll get to you after when we open up the bowl, so to speak.
Love it. And crack the bowl open. Okay,
Crack
so
the bowl open.
Stop sharing so that we can see one another, and I'm going to put you on speaker view so I can see you. Amazing. So speaker view supports everyone to be able to see whoever's talking. So all of you in Zoom here, if you want to use speaker view, we've also got pins. So we're trying all the tools to make sure that you can see us in this conversation.
It means that you and I have to look at ourselves, doesn't it? Because I don't think I can hide self view in this mode. So we'll just have to deal with that as we go.
Yeah, we'll have to deal with it.
I'm not used to it.
Yeah,
I got my eyes on you. I'm moving you underneath my camera. That's a little tip for facilitation, actually. Move the other person right underneath your camera.
Love it. Yeah, that eye contact is a meaningful thing.
It is. I think that really has to do with connection too online, because if you're always kind of looking over here, it's hard to feel like you're connected, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've had that experience where I'm talking to someone and they're looking at me, but they're looking away, and it's really hard to feel connected when, look at me, I'm here.
Yeah. So that's part of the theme of, intentionality that we wanted to kind of riff around, that there are certain things around our technology that we have to be really intentional about too these days, and how it's set up even. So it's as elemental as that, how we set up our webcams and look into our camera so that people can connect with us. Have you found, what other things are you thinking about right now around intentionality in your interactions with people, especially online these days?
I'm thinking a lot about, actually the intentionality I think a lot about is, who do I want to be in this environment, and how do I want to show up, and what do I want to model for people? Being relaxed, being myself, letting go of perfection. I do a culture creating exercise at the beginning to create intentionality about, okay, let's be explicit. How are we going to show up with each other for the next, even if it's 2 hours, I'll do that, because I want everybody to feel settled in their brain about what's expected here in this environment. How do you do the culture setting or modeling?
I do the same thing, even if it's just an hour or so, as you say, 2-hour session, that I call them group agreements or community agreements. And just, sometimes I propose them to people and say, here's my hope for how we're going to be together today. And what do you think? And do you agree to this? And then if I have more time, I'll generate them together with the group. And that is a part I think a lot of people miss around, getting a group together particularly, but maybe even coming to a one-on-one conversation. Hey, like thinking about what you want to get out of that experience, or who, as you said, like who you want to be coming to that experience. I know before a workshop, I really have to think about deep breathing, and because you can feel it, can't you? It's like, oh, it's like, even though I've been doing this for years, I still get nervous. That first 10 minutes or so, or the 10 minutes before, and then maybe the 5 or 10 minutes after you start, it's still there. So who are we and how do we show up? It's something to think about.
Did that elevate for you in the virtual environment, that fluttering or that anxiety prior to a facilitation?
Yeah, and maybe after too. And I think I've realized in the last few months, especially around March break, I remember, and I've said this to others, that I facilitated a workshop online right before March break, and I planned to take 2 weeks off. And I remember thinking, I don't really want to do this today. And I thought, whoa, that's telling something, because I love my work. I mean, I'm self-employed doing this work. I love this work, but I thought I need a break, because I was realizing it was so vulnerable it's even more vulnerable to show up, I think, online and do what I do. I mean, I teach about facilitation and about teaching. And so it's like very meta level, and people are like, you can't just talk about what to do. You have to model and do all the things. And then when you screw up, you have to tell people about it so that people learn, so that they know I still make mistakes and so on. It is vulnerable. And it makes me always remember that ego is very involved in our work, in all sorts of ways, not just as facilitators, but just as people interacting with other people. I don't know. Do you think about ego in that way? Like in a face-to-face workshop, you get the kudos. People come up and go, "Great workshop. I want to talk to you about this." But online, they just go off to their next meeting, and there's sort of the void. So I've been noticing ego and its relationship in my work even more this year. What about you?
I love that you named it as that. Now you've got me thinking about that. And I think I've had to self-manage a lot around, I thought of it as, there's not a lot of energetic feedback, which I love in a face-to-face environment. And it can happen, but it happens differently on Zoom, or as you say,
Definitely, yeah.
off people go. And so letting go of, this is such a great conversation, letting go of assumptions that they didn't get anything out of it because I didn't feel it energetically or see it in words or hear it from folks, and just being okay with that and trusting it went well. It was a meaningful session, even though I'm not feeling that energy, which is, I think I have that sense more than I realized. And so not having access to that was a bit So my exhaustion came from that, no energetic loop. So then managing it, not making assumptions about people's experience based on the void.
Yeah, that darn void. I don't always feel the void. I think I feel the void with some people, when videos are off, I really try to get people to turn the video on, because it is an interactive experience I'm creating. But, when people have their videos off, and I hear other people telling me about their other meetings, and it's just dead, right? Because all the videos are off and just people can't connect and so on. So back to intentionality, I mean, I lay the groundwork for the type of session that I think we all want to have. But still it is different than being face-to-face. But I walk away energized more often than not, actually, in my online meetings. And so I don't get some of the Zoom fatigue things that people are talking about, because mine are really fun and connecting, and we laugh and we see each other, and there's all sorts of connecting going on. But that's part of my work, is to try to help others have those things so that they don't get tired of being on Zoom. Like, it actually feels more connecting than
So
not.
give us your favorite ways to do that, Beth. You just opened up a great place for us to learn.
Yeah, it's the design piece, and this goes for, one-on-one interactions too. It's like, what are you trying to do? What's your we were going to talk about purpose. What's your purpose? Your purpose is not to have a meeting, is it? Your purpose is not to have a training event. It's to do something deeper than that. And maybe it's about relationship building or connection, or it's about ideation or brainstorming, or so, try to think about what I'm trying to achieve. But some of the things that I do are, I'll do a little video, I'll make a video. And actually I record videos in Zoom these days because of the filters. I look so much younger.
It's so much better.
It's a great look. So I must admit, I record in Zoom a lot, and then I, put it up on YouTube unlisted, and then send it to the group and just say, hi, I'm your facilitator, and here's 2 things I always talk about. I invite videos on. I would never require it, but I invite them on because of interaction and collaboration and engagement. And I always invite people to come 10 minutes before the start of the session to have more an informal start, because I'm purposely trying to mimic some of those times in the face-to-face room that we have for social time, right? Because if you and I attended a workshop together, we'd walk over and be like, hey, how's it going? And we don't have that unless we intentionally create that in online spaces. So I call it dropping breadcrumbs. Like I drop little breadcrumbs all the way, in advance of a session. And then at the start of it with the group agreements and other ways about here's how we are going to be together in this session. And I've written a blog post saying, my webinar is not your webinar, not your webinar, not your webinar, those other people's webinars, right? Where it's just very unidirectional, cameras are off and so on. Like that's not what we need to be doing right now or ever. We need to be collaborating if we're engaging in these spaces. And that goes for face-to-face too, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And my joke early on used to be, I just used to show up in a room with a PowerPoint and I was good to go. With this, now, and so I'm going to say this, and I'm thinking about leaders. We can't just send out an agenda for a meeting, get everyone in Zoom, and just grind through the agenda like we may have gotten away with in person.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the purpose of gathering? At what points will we be brainstorming? What points will we be making decisions? Where are we collaborating? And those different points in that agenda require different design and different engagement tools, different skills.
Yeah, they really, and it's the planning piece that I think a lot of people miss, as you say, like I just call it spaghetti on the wall. It's like we have a weekly meeting and we just meet and you kind of go through the agenda and it's sort of dead that way. So to be able to get people to back up and spend more time, to eke out time to plan with intention towards those purposes. And again, even if it's a face-to-face, even if it's just a conversation with one person that you're having on your team, to be able to make time for that, intentional thought and planning about what it is that you're trying to achieve and what kind of experience you want to have between the two of you. I think people maybe should do more of that, right? That maybe we're not doing enough of that. And then we end up with these kind of experiences that are lackluster and cause Zoom fatigue and all of the other pieces. Yeah. Did you feel you learned some more lessons about collaboration and engagement this year because of going online?
Yes.
Yeah.
So much more. And so I love my Mentimeter and I'm trying to experiment with other tools.
Yeah.
And I don't want to miss the point about preparation, because I think that is so important for everyone here, and acknowledging that that's needed. We need to be intentional. We need to have a design for the gathering. And so when are you going to fit the time in to do the preparation for the gathering? Because I hear from everybody, I'm generalizing, but I hear from a lot of people, it's like back-to-back meetings. So there's no time to prepare because I'm hopping on to my next thing.
Yeah.
So what we're raising here and surfacing is the need for leaders to prioritize some preparation, or start with what are the really important meetings or gatherings I'm hosting this week, and how do I want to set aside time to prepare so that I can facilitate them in an engaging, productive way.
Yeah. And I wrote about that in my book because I realized that was difficult for people, and that sometimes is difficult for me too, because you get a lot of stuff on your plate and you can't find time to design, but you have to make it. And how do you do it? So I've drawn a little bit from neuroscience and kind of the things that I do, that I just start really small, right? Pomodoro method, set a timer, eke out 20 minutes or 15 minutes to just start thinking about something. And like, if it's a workshop, I'll do a lesson plan kind of template or whatever. It's like, just start. And then you go away and you do all the 10, 20 other things that you have to do, but your brain in the background will work on that thing. And even if you kind of like have a skipping stone sort of, approach to the design of the experience, whatever that looks like, whether it's just a conversation or an actual workshop, little pieces over time add up, and your brain I don't know, sometimes it happens in the middle of the night, right? Like you wake up and you go,
oh, or the shower, or when you're drying like, my hair.
I'm going to use Fishbowl, for that activity or that kind of thing. Yeah. In the shower, driving, listening to a podcast, whatever. The ideas will come, but we have to start and make time for that. Yeah.
So we're going to move to open questions in a moment. And I just want to make sure that, because I have to tell you, this really struck me as Beth and I were preparing for this, and she named, here are the facilitation skills: listening, curiosity, intentionality. I had this epiphany of, oh, it's kind of like coaching. Like there's a lot of alignment with the skills of facilitation, which I have to say was kind of reassuring, because I've had moments where I've been thinking throughout the year, like, what am I doing? I have no facilitation training. And here I am facilitating all the time now in my business. So it was so affirming to see, oh, the skills of facilitation are very aligned to the skills of coaching. I'm okay.
Yeah, they're very aligned. So, the coaches in the world, and I've taken a coaching introduction class too, because at one point I thought, oh, maybe I should go the coaching route, but I decided, no, I'm a facilitator, not a coach. But the coaching training really was beneficial, because it teaches you to get outside of your own thing, right? Again, the ego piece. And I know you know this, because I've actually hired you as my coach. And, anyone who's ever had Diane as a coach, she's really effective. But get out of our own ego and situate ourselves with the other person. And the more we can put them in the center of our process, what do they need? Who are we designing for? That is a coaching skill. Absolutely. That's a facilitation skill as well.
I love that this, our unanticipated headline from this might be, lead like a facilitator, let go of your ego.
Let go of your ego. It's not all about you.
Yeah, shocking. Yeah.
Yeah. At one point I wanted to write, my title that I didn't choose for my book was Step Away from the PowerPoint. Was kind of another thing, right? It's like craft the experience, not the content delivery. And that's a whole other conversation probably too.
It is. Well, and I need to continue to hear that, because I do get a little bit attached to my pretty PowerPoints, I will say.
Yeah. We all do, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we love to lecture, even though we really shouldn't, most of the time.
Yeah, I know. They're a
Yeah.
safety thing for me. So
Yeah.
okay, I imagine there are some questions coming up for people, Beth. So I want to just create some space.
Let's open up our chat.
Let's open up the chat, and would love to hear your voices. So if you want to use the reactions button and put up your hand and come on in and use your voice, and we will also do our best to monitor the chat.
Okay, Shelley's asking about fishbowl as a technique, jumping in and out of the fishbowl. So you could, if you want to look up the process, I would look up the Liberating Structures one, so liberatingstructures.com, and it's the user experience fishbowl. And so I believe it gives you steps and the process and the timings and so on, but there's different ways you could use it. So we could actually get you fish to jump in the bowl and be spotlighting you and so on now, but we're just going to take your questions kind of around the edges here. Yeah, I don't know about maximum times, but it's there. Yeah, that's the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great question, Shelley. What other questions are coming up for people? There's a lot of educators in the house. I'm curious.
I just want to say, I think this actually works better on Zoom, because when I've used fishbowl technique in face-to-face, sometimes people can't hear, or they're, the room, depending on the size of the room. So I found this was actually really a good Zoom technique, and I hadn't used it on Zoom before. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Maria.
Fantastic. Nancy, come on in with your question.
Do I turn on my video? Oh, you can't see me. Anyway, thank you for this wonderful presentation. My question is, I work with a team, and through Zoom, there's no video interaction whatsoever. So I'm just wondering how you would introduce this idea that invites it, rather than feel like it's mandatory. Turn on your video. It's been a year now. So I'm curious about how you would, what feedback you would share for that.
Yeah, how do you get your team to, yeah, I mean, I as I say, I don't require it. If it were your team, I don't know. I mean, I'm conscious of people's home environments and, sharing and so on. So even with your team, maybe I wouldn't require it either, but having the conversation, right? Making space for the conversation about why videos on might be more engaging, and making space for the people that say that's difficult, and why, and what can you do about that? Because I don't know, when I have my video off, You know, I was just attending a conference yesterday. I want to start opening my email, doing other things. I suddenly have all sorts of housekeeping items to do around my desk. You know, like I feel like it lets us off the hook, and we need to challenge people more to turn it on. So I don't know, just making space for the conversation with your team to help people talk about the advantages that you might get if you had videos on more often. But I've also talked with some clients about questioning, going back to purpose. You know, why are you having the meeting? You know, do you have to have a meeting? Are you having a meeting because it's, you know, every Monday morning and there's a meeting, or are you having it because there's an intentional purpose to the meeting? And once you just determine what the purpose is, maybe it helps you decide whether videos should be on or off. Because sometimes we should have them off too, with reflective moments or whatever. Diane, what do you want to add pieces in there?
Well, I like the idea of surfacing the need for the cameras on, like what's the benefit in terms of connection for a team, being able to see them, read their body language a little bit. So invitational with purpose or intentionality. And I'm wondering, Beth, because you did that great having fun online, I also wonder if there's a way to lighten that up a little bit with like, we're going to, you know, have fun with an activity or a game, to invite the videos on as a transition to now we're going to do some work together.
Yeah, some sort of, you know, draw your partner, or, you know, we did a dancing thing when we had our session together, and I did another one this week with another facilitator through my facilitators group, where only 4 of us could have our videos on at the same time. Marianne was there. It was so fun, and we just, you know, you could dance on or off camera if you wanted to, and just so like when I choose activities for a meeting or a learning event, we always go back to purpose.
Actually, what was fun about that one, if I can jump in, was that we turned our cameras on and off. And that was actually very engaging, because we were dancing, and then we were only supposed to have 4 pictures on the screen at one time. So I'd have to turn off my camera and then turn it back on. And so it was a game, but it really got us engaged for about 3 minutes, Beth. Like not long.
Yeah. And it breaks my heart when people say, oh, in our environment, we can't do the things, Beth, that you are showing us. And I'm like, why can't you? You know, it's talking about connection, it's fostering relationships, you know, so I challenge all of you to take risks in your environments that you think you can't take, right? The comfortable risks. It's time to push the envelope. After a year, more than a year.
I love it.
Take a risk.
Take some risks. Well, and movement, like, so I just want to build on that a little bit, that dancing in front of people can be vulnerable, and there's a whole neuroscience reason for movement and music, and it gets us back to our prefrontal cortex, and all that good stuff can happen as well.
Oh yeah, full body experience. Yeah.
There's a great question from Karen here about she loves the concept, craft the experience, not the content. Can you talk a bit about managing time in meetings to allow for that, particularly if you have folks who have quite different levels of experience with a topic? Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to take a crack at that one? So I think I actually get this question a lot as a learning designer, because people, they go, oh, we have all these people come to the workshop that have different levels of experience. But actually, if you create opportunities for people to engage with each other, they teach each other in pairs, in small groups, in whatever, because they have different levels of experience with the content. So you, as the instructor or the facilitator, you don't have to be all things to all people. As a lecturer or presenter, you know, if you are so locked into the content delivery mode, you won't be able to allow people to share what they know with each other. So the more we can kind of break out of sort of the unidirectional teach and open up for engagement and collaboration, the issue about people's different experience levels is actually a benefit to everyone in the room. It's making time for it, because that is the session then. Time is for engagement. Not to say you can't present or lecture for tiny little pieces, but what are the people doing is what the question is that I think we always have to ask. And that goes for a one-on-one meeting as well. There's that thing like, why am I talking? Wait. And so it's an awareness thing, isn't it? Who's talking and who needs to be, and, you know, do I have to stop talking now to allow other people to sort things out for themselves and to share what they know?
Beautiful. Love that. Now, I'm mindful of time, and we do want to model some facilitation here, because it wouldn't be as fun if we just talked at you the whole time.
I
So,
know, yeah, we're trying not to do that. Do you want me to set it up?
yes, please.
Yeah, okay, so we're gonna put everyone into a structure called impromptu networking from, again, Liberating Structures. And it's, I think, should we just do 2 sets of pairs conversations, do you think, Diane? Should
Why
we
don't
do
we do
3?
two? Yeah.
Let's do 2. So we've got, I think Nicole's gonna pop a couple of invitation questions for you in the chat, and we're gonna put you in successive 2 different pairs conversations. So you'll have one other person to talk with in your breakout room. And waiting for those questions to come in. Let me see if I can find them over here.
There we go.
Oh, there they go. Okay, so the first one is, and you can talk about, we're going to give you 4 minutes total. So just share your time between the 2 of you over across the 4 minutes. So the first question is, how will you bring more intentionality to crafting meaningful experiences with others on a daily basis? And then the second is, what do you still hope to learn about crafting or creating everyday acts of facilitation? So okay, so we'll bring you back after your first pairing, and we'll give you a second random person to talk with, but we'll give you 4 minutes in your first pair to talk about either one or both of those questions.
And
Any questions before? Yeah,
I'll just
go ahead,
add
Dan.
a little bit of structure. So we're going to open up the rooms for 3.5 minutes. When it says the room's closing, there's still 30 seconds of countdown space. So use that time to finish your conversation, and then you'll be whisked back into the main room by Zoom. And Nicole. Nicole, are you good to go?
Just a minute here. We seem to have lost some people, so I want to make sure no one goes to a room alone. So I think we're all good here now. Okay, we'll send everyone in. Enjoy.
Right. Welcome back. Hopefully, I know it was probably feeling very quick, that first discussion. We're going to put you in a second pairing. So Nicole's going to randomize you again with the same invitation questions. If you happen to get the same person, just take your conversation deeper than you had a chance to before. So keep talking about that intentionality that you're going to bring. Even if you don't ever call yourself a facilitator, what would it look like to be more intentional about some of the things we've been chatting about and more? Okay, whenever you're ready, Nicole.
Thank you.
Another 4 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone. Again, that seemed really quick to us. Sometimes it doesn't seem quick when you're back in the main room, but hopefully you had some good discussions. What were some of the themes that came up for you in those pairs discussions that you're having? Feel free to post in the chat if it brought forward questions that you want to ask Diane and I, or if you just want to make a comment about things you're thinking about that you might bring more intentionality to. And feel free to raise your hand too if you'd like to say something verbally as well. We've got a fair bit of time here for a bit of a Q&A and just seeing where you're at.
We'd love to hear what's coming up for you, what you're learning. Ooh, connections from Selena.
Yeah.
Process, acknowledging the participants.
Yeah, connections. I think, yeah, the participants, it's, the more we think about who the participants are and what they might need and how we're going to work with them, and even if it's just 1 or 2 people, it's like, what's going on for them, and that these days it's also, I think about not what's just going on for them at work, but what's going on for them in their life and their home, and how can we meet them where they're at, and so on. There's all sorts of pieces there.
Great comments. I'd love to hear a few voices. Who would like to come in and either share an insight or ask a question? Annabelle, come on in.
Hello. So of course I missed the beginning chat, so excuse me if I'm repeating anything that you guys talked about, but we were just chatting about, for me, I love, usually it's like strategic facilitation. We have outcomes, we got to figure out solutions to things, but I realize I need to also be flexible in that process. and allow it to kind of adapt and change. And I wonder if you have any advice on how you can do that in that and still meet, you know, those objectives that you have.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, identifying objectives or outcomes is a really key step in that. And I think it's a piece that a lot of people miss, especially with workshops, but even for those intentional, you know, smaller one-to-one conversations, you know, why are you having it? What are you hoping to get out of it for both of you? But you're right, as a facilitator, we always have those outcomes or those goals in our mind, right? It's like hovering over ourselves. And, you know, when something's happening in the room, we're trying to think, is this related to what we're supposed to, you know, are we on track, or is this in or out of scope? And so there is flexibility there, isn't there? There has to be. And some of it is recognizing when the group needs to stay on the track that you've planned as the facilitator, and recognizing when the group does not. The group needs to go in a different direction than you've originally intended for. And sometimes I think that's a group decision too, where, you know, you have to make that decision together to veer off to do something important that needs to be done. So it's such an it depends kind of question, isn't it? But having the balance between the outcomes and the flexibility within them is a shared responsibility, I believe, between the facilitator and the participants often. Diane, anything there for you?
I appreciate you saying that. And I think, you know, naming what's happening, like, oh, we've gone in this different direction. And this would be a coaching approach too. We've gone into a different direction. Let's just name that. And do we want to stay in that new direction, or do we want to circle back? And then, like you said, co-create the outcome.
Yeah.
Or the decision, or shared. I love that. It's a shared responsibility. It's not just the leader. The leader doesn't have to do all the heavy lift.
Yeah, I think that's such a great thing to remember and recognize when we come together with groups, you know, in a leadership role in general, that is not just the leader or the facilitator's responsibility to create the thing. You know, I see crafting the experience is coming up, and, you know, was coming up in some of your conversations too, because we talked about that. It's like, it's all of our responsibility to craft the experience and to keep crafting it. And we talk sometimes about those group agreements or community agreements. It's like, we can't just set them, we have to maintain them. We have to keep coming back and kind of drawing people's attention back to them. And so it's an ongoing thing, the crafting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Great question, Annabelle.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Andrea, come on in.
Thank you. Good morning. Just building on Annabelle's piece around strategic planning and goals, and that, I love that too. And I think part of it is, you know, that discussion up front around what the intent is of the day. And as the facilitator, it's I guess it's molding those boundaries, right, for everybody. So when we're stepping out of that box, acknowledging it and giving space for it, if that's what the group wants, right, because it's their time. And if it's not, then bringing them back, you know. And then if you're you know, facilitating content, it's bringing them in on your journey. So people I think take things in differently, visually, auditory, all that, right? So how do you ensure that people are along with you in that journey? You're not losing anybody, right? So I think being in tune with with whoever you're facilitating is really, really important, right? And I don't know if you have any way to ensure that people are along with you on the journey, how you ensure that happens, you know, especially if you've got this goal and you feel like you have blinders on, right? It's taking the blinders off and you're bringing everybody with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it makes me think, Andrea, about inclusion and universal design for learning is something I'm really trying to read about and practice. And it's tricky because universal design for learning is that, you know, we're designing so that all people can participate, and they don't have to say, I'm blind, I'm deaf, you know, this is happening for me, I have a cognitive something, right? So that, but it's really skilled work. And so that's something I'm challenging myself in, is how do we design so that all people can participate in ways that work for them, basically all the time in the sessions that we have. And this week I have a blind learner in an online course, and you better believe we've upped our game in how we're designing and facilitating an online course, because, you know, alt tags for every image, you know, I'm making audio files for every page, you know, but we're designing it so that the person doesn't have to say to the rest of the group, I'm blind and this is what I need. And so, I mean, we know learning styles as people think of them don't actually exist, but we do have to still think about learning preferences and how people like to learn and how they can learn and so on. So it's a big job, but there's lots of resources out there. And if you're interested, any of you, I can show you some of the books I'm reading about UDL.
Hey, so Beth, have you sat in the shoes of that blind person and tried it, like
Yep.
auditory, and just like, I don't know what you would do, blindfold or dark room or something, right? And just be present with what you're hearing, you know? That must be such an incredible experience, you know?
Well, literally what you're hearing, because, you know, we have an accessibility toolbar built in, but it's like, select this text and then it'll read the text aloud. And we're like, well, how would a blind person select the text? That's stupid. So we're like, how do screen readers work? I don't know. I'm thinking I probably have to get a screen reader to be able to go and put myself in the shoes even more. So it really has opened up a lot of questions. Yeah.
Amazing. I feel like there's a workshop that we need to create for folks, Beth, to give access to this.
Oh, and I'm no expert on that topic, but CAST in the States, CAST, is a group that I look to a lot, and they've done a few books and they have an interactive site and so on. So yeah, we can maybe follow up with some of those resources if people. I see Diane's posting in the chat.
Want some. Okay, Carlene, come in. We'll answer a quick question and then we'll wrap ourselves up.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much, everybody. And I just want to say I had great partners in my breakout room, so thank you very much. And I think I met a spirit animal down the road there, so that's good. One thing that I wanted to tag in with what Beth was saying was about playing around with, you know, synchronous and then asynchronous. And so when you sent a video to your participants ahead of time, introducing yourself, here are some things that we're going to do and work on. I have some colleagues that are on this team in this chat. We've been really working around with having some opportunities for individuals to work after hours and participate and do some of the work on their own time, and playing around with different video responses. And we're just at the infancy stage, but just with the adult learners having the autonomy to participate in whatever way they want to, and using different things like Flipgrid so people can see their responses and they can record it as many times as they need to. So we're going to utilize some more of that thinking as we go on to next year. So it's really been helpful, and we've been using Flipgrid. So if you just want another platform, a lot of educators are using flipgrid.com. And you can use it for lots of different things. So yeah, thank you so much. Really enjoying this. So I know it's time to go. So namaste.
Thanks, Carly. Flipgrid is really great. And I just want to bring it back to, it sounds like you're making intentional decisions about what to do in what mode. And people say online learning or online meetings, but it's not just one online, is it? There's several buckets of online. So asynchronous, you know, not at the same time, synchronous, kind of like what we're doing now. And so making the decision about what's possible in each mode, that is a learning design thing. You know, what's your purpose? What's your goal? What mode is possible to do that thing in? And so I love that you're expanding, you know, your reach to your folks with both asynchronous and synchronous pieces. That makes sense.
I dropped in loom.com because Loom is my favorite video platform. If you want to send a message, it's almost as easy as recording in Zoom. So I just want to give Beth an opportunity to tell you about her special offer. So Beth, come tell everyone what you've got.
Sure. Yes. Thanks, Anne. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I want to give away a book, and I wrote this book called Design to Engage: How to Create and Facilitate a Great Learning Experience for Any Group. And so we're going to give you a link in the chat here, and we'll send it after as well to enter the book draw. So this is a book about facilitating learning, and I wrote it about face-to-face, but who knew a global pandemic was going to hit and we'd all move online. But I've actually been working online, creating online learning since about 2005 too. So a lot of the stuff in the book is about learning in general. It's just crafting experiences, and even as a sort of a group process facilitator, there's a whole chapter on straight facilitation skills. So I'm hoping that you know, one of you who will win the book will enjoy it. And I just wrote it for everybody who was never trained formally in how to create experiences in learning events. So hopefully you'll find it useful, and good luck.
It's incredibly useful. It's a great resource because we are all facilitating whether we know it or not,
Yeah.
or want to identify it as such. That's what we're doing as leaders, I think. Thinking about yourself as a facilitator, as a leader, I think it's a game changer. So I hope this conversation's helped you think about that. I want to let you know that we are so excited to be ready to invite in our next cohort in the Inspired Leadership Program. My new favorite thing, I'm so excited about this program. It's been 10 years in the making, and we have 22 people in the initial program, and it is amazing. And I hope that you'll think about this. Reach out if you have any questions. And I just want to let you know this, as much as I love our masterclasses, we're going to take a break over the summer. I need a break, and I need to rejuvenate, re-energize, and I'm really keen to hear from you what topics you'd like to explore starting in September in the masterclass space. So we'll create a little survey around that. That'll come out later in the summer, because I really want to co-create these with you and bring you what's topical. And so, Beth, I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, and that was so much fun. I knew it would be fun, and I knew it would go fast, and yes. And thank you for all you're doing to support us in these times. You are serving so many people, and we appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Well, to you as well. I mean, we're doing similar but different work, and I'm glad we're both here, and thanks for asking me. And thanks to all of you who came and engaged. It was really fun, and it did go fast. Absolutely.
All right, everybody. I wish you well with whatever reopening looks like where you are, and stay hopeful and get some rest. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Bye, all.